Good afternoon, folks. This is your FU Bill Ackman emergency ticker forum update. Look, folks, I need to put this out here because this cry fest that Ackman just did on CNBC, which, by the way, caused an immediate crash in the market into the lock limits while he was on. So he was the proximate and immediate cause of it. I won't put context on this because, oh my God, we're going to turn into Italy. We have to lock everything down right now for 30 days. Lock everything down and then keep the social distancing. Okay. First off, listen to some of my other podcasts, read some of my other stuff that I've put out there, especially the math-related ones that prove beyond a shadow of a doubt that even if you were to stop all transmission for 30 days, and therefore we now go beyond the case lifetime for all existing cases, it would do nothing because unless you get rid of every single repository of virus throughout the world, as soon as you drop those restrictions, it comes right back. That's just the way it is. Epidemiologically, this is a very simple thing. Viruses only stop when the herd immunity reaches the point that their transmission rate is suppressed enough that they die out and community transmission no longer works. For a virus with a R0 of about 3, you need to have about 66% coverage of immunity, either by vaccine or by having had it in order to reach that goal. When you will start to see a significant suppression of transmission when you reach about 30%, 35% immunity. The problem is you reach that point only when almost everybody has gotten the disease. That's just the way it works. All right. This is how exponents work. I don't care whether you like it or not. This is the way exponents work. This is why exponents are so important to understand, folks, because you will make bad decisions if you don't understand them. Secondly, anyone who thinks that we could vaccinate 100 million Americans, say much less 200 million Americans, in less than 3 or 4 years is a lunatic, and that's assuming that you had the vaccine now. We got that coverage for polio. We got that coverage for measles. We got it because we did it over the space of years, even decades, and we maintain it because we give those vaccines to kids when they're very young before they can be exposed. Nonetheless, we do occasionally have outbreaks of measles among unvaccinated populations because it's extremely infectious. Okay, so for context, there's a thing out right now that's making the rounds that Italy, because they've been overwhelmed, because they are literally turning people away, all right, because they don't have the beds. So basically, this is granny dies. So essentially, we're talking. This is what Bill Ackman was screaming about. Oh my God, my old parents. By the way, he is such a rich son of a bitch that if he couldn't afford to isolate them in a place where they could not possibly get infected by anybody else, that is bullshit. He could have done that himself. He could have done that a month ago. He should have done that a month ago. And there's absolutely no reason that he's calling for a sudden stop to save his father. That's a lie. All right, but I want to put context on the Italy numbers because Italy had this thing get away from them. And let's look at what's going on. They say they have 350 people a day dying right now. Okay, Italy has 60 million in population. It's about a fifth of the United States. So that would be 1,750 people a day in the United States if we let this thing burn through the country and we don't do anything to stop it. In other words, we reopen the economy and we let it burn through. We'd have 1,750 people a day for a while until we reach that immunity point who would die in the United States. That sounds terrible. It sounds really, really terrible. Folks, it's not. Okay? 7,500 people a day die in the United States right now. Not from virus-related causes, just from all causes. 7,500. Almost all of them are older. Well, that's because when you get old, your mortality goes up. Okay? 7,500 people. So what we would do is we would accept, okay, that we're going to go up in death rate temporarily in the United States by about 20%. In other words, instead of 7,500 people that die a day, we'd have, about 9,000, 9,500, a little under 10,000 for a little while. Not for very long. In 4 months, this thing's over, folks. In 4 months, it burns out and it's over. And for those people who don't want to be, who are at risk and don't want to be among one of the ones who dies, you have ways to mitigate that risk. You can do things yourself personally. You can self-isolate. You can get other people to come in to help you who have been proved immune. In other words, right now, your only option that you got for that, the only one, if you're in that basket today, is you got to find somebody who had it and recovered. And you know what? Here's a big problem, folks. 85% of the people who got it never got tested because they never had symptoms, and therefore they're recovered and they're immune, but you don't know. Maybe including me. My daughter and I both had a weird atypical flu. I told everybody about this starting January. Maybe I'm immune. Maybe I can't get it again. I have no way to know right now. We need a rapid test that you can do, much like you do for a pregnancy test or whatever. Okay, prick your finger kind of thing. All right, it probably needs blood. That checks for antibodies, and if you've got them, well, guess what? You're either positive now or you're immune. Well, if you're not sick now, okay, so if you get a positive test, wait 2 weeks, wait 3 weeks, and if you're having a subclinical infection today, it'll be over, and you still have the antibodies, and guess what? You're safe. You can go help Gramps. And we need this for healthcare workers because it is very important that we don't send our healthcare workers out in quarantines. That's a disaster. But if you've been infected, how much immunity you get from it? We don't know yet. But you know what? We don't even have any way to measure this right now. We have none. Unlock the economy, Mr. President and governors. This is stupid. I understand nobody wants Granny to die. I get it, all right? I don't like this. And yes, there are people who are younger that get critically ill and die from this thing. But this happens to young people every now and then all the time. The reality is that the distribution, and by the way, most of those people who, he was 20, he had no comorbidities. Really? How do you, was this somebody that weighed 300 pounds and actually was insulin resistant, had latent diabetes, or maybe even uncontrolled type 2 diabetes and didn't know it? You can have a blood sugar close to 300 without realizing it. Do we know this? No. Oh, no, he had no. How do you know? How the hell do you know? How do you know we didn't have some kind of compromise from something else, some cardiac thing? And then you get the guy into the hospital and you fill him full of rescue stuff to try to stop it, which, by the way, is not risk-free, okay? Hey, I get it, man. There are going to be people who you think, God, that person was so young, got cut down in the middle, the earliest part of their life. It happens to people all day. Car accidents, all kinds of. I understand. Saying, let it go, let Granny die. No, I'm not saying let Granny die. I'm saying take the mitigation steps to prevent infection and put them where they do the most good, where they will save the most number of lives. Not on everybody, but where they'll save the most number of lives. And at the same time, do what we can to get immunity up in the community, because that is the only way this thing ends, folks. Unless you can guarantee that there is no reservoir of this thing anywhere in the world, and since you can't do that and there's a 6 or 7 day latency period, as soon as you drop these restrictions, somebody is going to get on an airplane from somewhere, they're going to have it, they're not going to be sick, they're going to come into your country, and the whole damn thing's going to start again. And we're going to keep doing this cycle after cycle after cycle. And you know what? We're going to come up with what we think is a vaccine. All right, fantastic. We're going to go out, we're going to hand out vaccines, and that's not going to work either. And you know why? Because viruses reassort. Somebody is going to get this and the flu at the same time, and they're going to end up producing another strain. And that strain will not have full immunity. And so people are going to get sick again. How many times are you going to do this? You can't keep doing it. We're destroying the economy, ladies and gentlemen. For what? I get it. It's bad. I get it. There are people who are going to be very severely impacted. But 85% of the people who got it, according to this paper in Science over in China, had no symptoms. And yet they still got infected and they built immunity. We have to stop the screaming. I know viruses, they scare people. Germs. Go listen to some George Carlin. He had a big riff on it. I understand. But we have to be looking at this in terms of real numbers and real risks. And the epidemiological data does not support what we're doing right now. What they're trying to do is basically play, we're going to give 20% of the population a little bit better chance at not getting it by destroying 80%, including you and your livelihood. Something to think about. I'm your ticker guy.